On tonight's Cover One Buffalo podcast, powered by BetUS, we are joined by FTN Fantasy's Aaron Schatz. We are also going to be doing some William Mattar midseason awards, but first, our guys, Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, we may be powered by BetUS, but I won't lie. I'm still kind of powered by that win on Sunday. It's nice. I didn't have to turn the page. Normally by this time I would have already had to switch gears and research the next opponent. And it's nice. It's been nice to just kind of linger and just bathe in. I've listened to so many national podcasts and people recapping the game and talking about how fantastic Josh Allen looks. It's been fun.
Yeah, no, it's been a fun week. Weather, it was 60 degrees here on November 20th up here in Western New York. And so I got to get outside a little bit today. This is nice. It's really, honestly, the bye. It's been a long season already here. And we do a lot of work behind the scenes this time of year to get ready for a Wednesday show. Like you said, usually digest that win on Monday. And I got to kind of take my time with the film. I was still watching some defensive film here today, and that's very rare for me. It's usually a 3-4 hour window where I have to really process that victory and then move on to the next so we can prepare for this show. And this is a lot easier to have a bye week and just kind of sit back, digest, and really get a chance to not just look at the last win, but what they've done so far this season, and then start the self-scouting process will begin for me after this show of all right, now that they're 9-2, now that they've got all these wins and maybe a little ahead of where we thought they were, what are some of the things to clean up? And so it's been a real exciting week.
Yeah, we're going to get into a lot of fun things. We're going to take a look at the remaining schedule and pick out some wins and losses with BetUS. We're going to do some midseason awards with William Mattar. We're going to go through and have a little bit of fun later. But first, we figured what better way to enjoy this bye week, this incredibly nicely timed bye week. I wasn't certain that I would love it, but the timing of getting a bye this late in the season with so many guys now needing a little bit of help to come back, what better way to enjoy that than to bring on one of our favorite, one of the smartest guys around football, FTN Fantasy, and the godfather of DVOA, Mr. Aaron Schatz. Aaron, how we doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you, by the way. The win was good because on one hand, I will say I don't like making the 1972 Dolphins happy because they are really obnoxious.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I was really sick of writing all those. The Chiefs are 9-0, but they're not as good as you would think that 9-0. I'm so sick of writing that.
Yeah.
So thank you for ending that. And now we can just talk about them as a good team and not have to write about them being undefeated anymore.
We had another friend of the show on Wednesday night who comes on that has a very similar network to ours around Kansas City. And we were talking to him that I'm not a conspiracy theorist or anything, but I can tell you which outcome the NFL preferred, because if Kansas City won that game, the deflation of any drama of the end of the season, the number one seed was almost wrapped up in week
you have
12.
More than a month of football that is meaningless for them.
It even compounded that not only did the Chiefs pretty much have the 1 seed wrapped up, but the Bills had a 5.5 game in lead in the division. So if you have a 5.5 game in the lead in the division, but no shot at the 1 seed, they would have nothing to play for in the last 3 weeks. So there was this really significantly increased any level of drama for the rest of the season. So I know Roger Goodell was happy too.
Yeah, I think it worked out well for everybody.
All parties
All
involved.
hands.
All parties
Yes,
involved.
and many people watched the game. We saw some big numbers from the game.
Crazy numbers.
But Aaron, you thanked us, but honestly, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, one, for your time coming on here tonight, but two, listeners of the show know I am a huge advocate of DVOA and what the work that you guys do. This is something I look at every single week, and it's always, data plus film for us here at Cover One. But I've been a big, like, the hill that I've been dying on, Aaron, lately is every time I still turn on a broadcast or every time I do tune into the national media, it is still like the opponent is the 8th ranked defense because of total yards. And you have been leading this fight against total yards for so long, and I'm just jumping on to help fight it. But can you just, anyone that's not that's out there, they hear me on radio and on here, and I just shout out DVOA. Like, I assume everybody knows what it is, but then I still get questions and I have to post the explainer. Can you give a quick, maybe elevator pitch of what it is DVOA is and why you created it?
Yeah, basic idea is it looks at every play and the success on that play based on the down and distance. And then it compares that to a league average baseline that is adjusted for situation and opponent, where higher than 0 is good offense and lower than 0 is good defense, and 0 is average every year.
So
that's
one little thing to help some of the listeners, give a little bit of an example of what success means, because that's another thing that we get here is on an early down versus later down, that kind of thing.
It starts with success rate, which is the way we do it is you're successful if you get 45% of the yards on first down, 60% on second down, or 100% on third down. And then there's like extra points for longer plays. And then there's negative points for losses and for turnovers. And then there's a lot of other things that go into it, like treating all fumbles as equal and rating interceptions based on how far downfield the interception, right? Because throwing the ball 40 yards downfield is a different interception than when it gets picked off by a defensive lineman at the line of scrimmage. And it like adjusts for all of this stuff and tries to be as predictive as possible and adds in special teams. But that now you're getting into the complications.
Well, and that's one I get a lot is, because it's something I post with the weekly matchups and comparisons. And I do urge people to like that, if you're going to use the NFL.com rankings and stuff, I see all those charts of like this team gives up this yards and that's not predictive, right? Can you kind of get to the element of DVOA that is predictive? Because that is something here we're going to talk about as we look ahead to the season.
Yeah, I hate it that they still use total yards to rank teams. If they want to use something that's more publicly available like EPA, expected points added, all right, my thing is a little black box, that's okay, I would understand that, but my God, just stop using total yards, because we all know that when you are losing, it's easier to pass the ball because you're trying to catch up, so you stop running the ball. So when they're like Team X allows like no running, hey, the Detroit Lions don't allow any running yards, like because they're like 9-1, like they have a good run defense too, but you get the basic.
Teams are passing to get a chance to get back into those games.
Our favorite last year, you're trying to say the Carolina Panthers weren't the best pass defense in the NFL?
Yeah, right. Yeah, nobody passed on the Carolina Panthers because they were freaking losers.
Or, for example,
they were getting blown out, just milking the clock, running the whole second half.
Sort of like we were talking offline a little bit, the Bills defense, right? And that they are, people are frustrated with the run, but a lot of it is in between the 20s, and then they hold to a field goal. So the yards pile up, but the yards don't matter if they're not gaining success, right, on those drives and things like that.
Right. And there's also consistency, because we were talking about the Bills' run defense is number 2 in the league in stuffing runners for a loss or no gain, but they're number 31 in allowing what we call open field yards, which is the yards that come 10 or more downfield. So a lot of the run yardage that they've given up is on just a few runs, which means that most of the time they're preventing success.
Yes. Yeah. And so that's why the total yardage, not an indicator, but again, to the predictive nature of DVOA, that is one I get a lot, is what makes it, like, what about
the opponent adjustment is a big part of it.
Yeah.
The treating all fumbles equally is a big part of it. I used to give a bonus in the red zone. I don't anymore, because it turns out that red zone is more variable. So that was hurting the predictive quality of it.
Yeah.
And
Well, but understanding you do that kind of
ways.
Yeah,
try to
that
make it
you're doing self-evaluation and adjustments is even better. Like you're looking at, hey, what is predictive, what is correlating here, and making those tweaks to keep it as relevant as possible.
We got a good one.
every few years or every couple of years or whatever. So I sort of do an overhaul and introduce a few more things, and the individual stats. That's sort of next off season's project is to overhaul the individual stats a little bit more. But the team stats just got it last off season and are much more predictive now.
Awesome. And so Charles here with a question. This is another one I get a lot, right? Because there is a lot of conversation about EPA and how would you use DVOA as opposed to EPA? But DVOA does use EPA, but it is adjusted.
It doesn't use EPA because it's more. There's sort of two different ways that you can do things in an advanced stats fashion. One is the EPA way, and the other is the success rate type idea. DVOA is built more on the success rate idea. EPA is really good. EPA is a little bit more backward looking than DVOA. So, for example, Washington, one of the reasons why Washington was so amazing in offensive EPA early on was that they recovered a high percentage of their own fumbles. And the couple of interceptions that Daniels threw, they didn't allow returns. Now, DVOA, in order to be more predictive, treats all fumbles as equal, whether you recover them or not. And every interception gets an average return. Because let's be honest, stopping a long interception return is not really a quality of an offense.
And it's not predictive.
Yeah, it's not predictive, like whether you allow the other, like it's terrible for EPA if you allow an 80-yard pick six, but it's not really predictive because normally if you throw an interception on the other 20, it's not going to get returned 80 yards. Yeah. So EPA is a little bit more backward looking and it's not adjusted for opponent.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's
so much better than conventional. EPA is so much better than conventional rankings.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, that backward look, it is a better measure of how impactful that play was. That doesn't mean it's predicting that it's going to happen again, but it takes into account that, hey, if you do throw an 80-yard pick six, that is more impactful than an interception at the 20 that gets tackled at the 20. So they take that into account, which shows, like you said, that kind of, more backwards look of how what it did, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen again or going to be more likely.
Right.
And now you said too, not available or as available to the public, but through FTN Fantasy, DVOA is open to the public. I know we have a lot.
Right. The difference is that the EPA model that they use at the NFL Fast R public package is like completely publicly available, whereas I don't give away what the base. You can't compute DVOA yourself.
Sure, but anyone listening, they can go to FTN Fantasy and
all the numbers are available all the way back to 1979. If you're a subscriber, you can download the premium splits workbook, which gives you all the splits by down and type of play and the area on the field and all that stuff. That's all publicly available. What's not available is the recipe. Yeah. Basically, I tell you the ingredients. I just don't tell you how much of each ingredient I use in each step.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Gotta keep a little magic.
Yeah, so let's dig in a little bit here to the Bills, right? They're 9-2, but I know we talked a little bit offline of was there any nuggets that you have found about this Bills team this year that you found particularly interesting?
I think the first thing I was looking for just interesting little splits. Do you know they're only 24th passing on first down?
Well, that's a problem. Don't get Greg going.
So you do know.
Well, we didn't know that.
Yeah, they haven't been successful passing on first down. They're very successful passing on second and third down, but they haven't been successful passing on first down.
Yes. Do you think,
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that one. Yeah. Shoot second and long runs into the sun. The worst is when you get a penalty, and then it's like second and like a grounding or something, and it's like second and 20, and then they run on second and 20. Oh God. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying that Buffalo does this. I'm just saying NFL teams
do it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of folks that have been talking about where it almost seems like the Bills and Joe Brady have a different offense early down and late down. And I keep hoping that he's keeping a little something like close to the vest, and like we're gonna like sprinkle more of that, and I will say I celebrate when he's really good at sprinkling in some of the jumbo set extra linemen first down play action and taking shots when he does that, and we hit really nicely.
It's like a 3 tight end thing. I love 3 tight end play action because everybody thinks they're going to run, and then I used to do that.
Just the frequency. It's just I just need a little more. Just need a little bit more.
And that's what I was going to say is that statistic on the passing, is that maybe a frequency thing? They've been running a lot with decent success early in the year, not as much against Kansas City.
No, this is per play, so it doesn't have anything to do with how frequently they run versus.
They're just not doing it well.
They're just not passing well. They're 24th on first, but then they're second on second and second on third.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? It's a little weird. And they're 5th running the ball on first down.
So yeah, well, that's the thing. That's
the first down runs are good. It's just the first down passes that aren't. It's kind of weird.
That's sort of been the argument of the frustration of everybody. Like, oh, they're so predictable and they run on first down. But up until this Kansas City game, it actually has been very successful to run.
Yeah, it didn't. The Kansas City game, the run was not working as well. The Kansas City run defense. It's really crazy to say this, given that it was their weakness for so long. It's now a real strength.
It is a real strength.
I don't know what they've done to change that because it's basically the same people. But whatever Spagnuolo is calling, there's much more of an emphasis on stopping the run this year.
Well, they found a way to like mix in base defense, having the third linebacker out there, but using it, specifically Chenal, in such a creative way that like he's moving around like a chess piece, but you still have the bulk and the personnel out there to get some of the benefits.
Yeah, but he's not great in pass coverage, so that may come back.
People haven't quite figured out how to fully take advantage of that yet. I don't know.
Do you got any other nuggets that you found interesting?
It was a good one. Okay.
No, I mean, I will tell you, I've been playing around the last couple of years with this coverage DVOA that I can do thanks to the FTN charting, because when we know how often, every snap, who's in coverage on every snap and who's, in. So you can judge guys based on when they give up yardage in coverage, but based on coverage snaps rather than targets. Yeah. Benford is great.
Oh, yeah.
Benford's having a phenomenal year.
Yeah.
So he honestly adds that. I'm writing about that tomorrow, about the cornerbacks and
it's going to cost us so much money.
Is this his last year? Does he have one?
We actually this team is on a 2-year window. Almost everybody. Next year, there's 2 older guys, Amari Cooper and Rasul Douglas are the only impactful players, and then a bunch of this year's 1-year rental guys. But all the following year, it's Gregory Rousseau, Terrell Bernard, Khalil Shakir, Christian Benford, James Cook. That entire group.
Rousseau's been very good this year.
There's a whole bunch of guys, and obviously Rousseau and Benford, premium positions. Shakir is going to probably be like Taron Johnson was, where you're going to be, it's a slot receiver, but one of the higher paid slot receivers. Terrell Bernard is going to he got all pro votes last year. He's probably getting more all pro votes this year. And then obviously I guess here it's a good question. With seeing what the market did for running backs this past year, and obviously there's been so much information out there, and the terminology is it's not that running backs don't matter, it's that they're incredibly replaceable and there's just a lot available to do it. But the market came back so much that all of a sudden 2 of the most consistently seen, analytically leaning, smarter teams in Philadelphia and Baltimore splurged for the 2 biggest running back signings in the offseason, and both are paying off in spades.
Yeah.
Do you think they've, not that it's going to tip back the other way and all of a sudden it's going to be first round running backs galore and crazy contracts, but you think it maybe that will be the tipping point to stop, to be like, all right, it's okay to pay a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I still, if I have to choose between paying the running back and paying the lineman, I'd rather pay the lineman.
It's a nice luxury when you're already set up well, because look at the Giants. They're a perfect example. Tyrone Tracy looks really good. He was a fifth round pick, super cheap.
The teams that went super cheap at running back, it didn't work out. Like Dallas and Las Vegas. Dallas and Las Vegas have terrible running games this year.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. So James Cook is another one for us where, he's looked really, really nice, but Ray Davis has looked pretty good too. Ty Johnson's looked good. We've done this. We did Zach Moss and then recycled him out, and then it was Devin Singletary and then cycled him out, and then James Cook. And while they're there, we just do every other year. We pick a third or fourth round running back.
And I'm going to say that off-ball linebacker is somewhat similar. Like I'm a great believer that if you use two off-ball, you only pay one the big money. And they've already got that. The question is, can that guy stay healthy now? Yeah. Or do you have to pay Bernard because Milano can't stay healthy? If Milano can stay healthy, then I think Bernard is a guy you can let leave.
Yeah.
So that you can pay Benford and Shakir
or
at
a minimum need to have it layered so that Bernard's money doesn't start in earnest until Milano's is coming off the books.
Yeah,
but they would at minimum need to like structure it that way.
That was almost the idea they were trying to do with Tremaine Edmonds and let him walk. But on this conversation about running backs, actually, this is another really good point before we get into like the league view. In paying running backs, and specifically when you look at a team like Buffalo and we look at some of the DVOA statistics, we were talking again offline, the offense is 4th in adjusted line yards, but 20th in running back yards. And so like running back, an agent goes up to the Bills and is like, hey, this James Cook, he's having this kind of year and he's getting this many yards and all that stuff. How much of it is that the adjusted line yards and data like that is to sort of place some responsibility on how
it's very heavily the line. They don't have as much of the highlight runs that the line makes holes for him.
Yeah.
And I think you probably I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the rushing yards over expected next gen stats number, I don't know what that is for Cook, but my guess is that it's probably like 0.
Yeah.
Like not negative, but not super positive either.
Not creating a ton extra for sure. There's been, I will say, he's probably slightly above where he used to be. He used to be like a first contact guy where like, hey,
sure,
he's pretty slight and he would have some wiggle, but once you got contact on him, he kind of went down. He has had a few this year. He actually won Kyle Brandt's Angry Run Award a couple of weeks ago. So he's had a little bit more this year where you can tell, I don't know how much of it is like, bulky working out in the off season, but he has definitely worked on his contact balance to where now it's a slight positive. I don't think it's like all of a sudden something big, but a good
example of running backs don't matter because you get Davis does well. And even Ty Johnson does well. Yeah. And that's a guy who was freely available on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
And he comes in and behind that offensive line and does well. So
thank God for Aaron Cromer. So
and linebackers being nervous about Josh. That never hurts.
Well, yes. I mean, there's no question. I wrote about this last year with the whole MVP thing, that what applied to Lamar Jackson also applies to Josh Allen, which is that having a mobile quarterback opens things up for the running game because you always have to be afraid that the mobile quarterback's going to keep the ball.
Mobile quarterbacks also that can throw to every blade of grass on the field, puts a lot of things in cover too. And
I mean, throwing to every blade of grass is great, but also the mobility, bootlegs, maybe he has the ball, so you can't necessarily overcommit to the running back. And that this is, I wrote about this first with Michael Vick 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So like 18 years ago. So yeah.
Don't get me started. Work done.
Duckett,
TJ Duckett. That was a great backfield.
Oh, yeah. So let's get into a little bit of the league here. I know you do a lot of the predictive stuff of who's going to make the playoffs. How far are they going to advance into the playoffs? What right now for the AFC? I know a lot of people are kind of looking ahead what this is going to look like. Who's going to get the 1 seed? Who's going to advance to the divisional round? What are your what's the data showing you of how this is going to shake out so far this year?
There's the big 3 of the AFC by advanced stats, and not just DVOA, but anybody out there who does advanced ratings. The big 3 is Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore. Yeah. Pittsburgh has the better record, but the underlying stats are not as good. Now, here's what's interesting. I wrote about this a week and a half ago. Certain coaches seem to have a record of outperforming what the DVOA and other advanced stats would suggest how good their teams are. Reed is one of them, but Tomlin really is one of them.
Tomlin was going to be the first name that popped up. Yeah.
Right. Tomlin has and Pittsburgh just keeps doing this. They keep winning games that I wouldn't say they win games they have no right to win. They win a lot of these 50-50 games. This was a 50-50 game with Baltimore. And Baltimore is actually not the best record the last couple of years in particular in that stuff. So it's interesting that Pittsburgh has the better record and Pittsburgh's more likely to win the division. But I think of Baltimore as the big three teams that are the real Super Bowl contenders. The problem that Baltimore has is they're very inconsistent. And if they're a wild card, they're going to have to go on the road and play their good game 3 straight weeks. And given how inconsistent they are, you never know when they're going to put up one where they commit 12 penalties and can't get into the end zone and weird stuff happens and they lose. So like, it seems more likely to me that as much as Baltimore was my preseason pick, it seems more likely to me that Buffalo or Kansas City is going to make it unless Baltimore can get past Pittsburgh and win their division.
Well, I brought it up to a couple of Baltimore fans that my prediction is that I think Baltimore is going to absolutely just completely boat race a team in the playoffs and win another one, maybe by another multiple scores, and then throw up on themselves because we haven't seen them play multiple positive games. They consistently have these ugly games. I'll believe they can win 4 straight when I see it. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to play at that level. They're so up and down that obviously their ceiling and their A game is maybe Detroit is, the best in the league. Like, they're phenomenal, but we don't see it on a consistent basis.
The other thing about the AFC is the playoff field is almost entirely decided.
Yeah.
I think we have Denver at 60%.
I was just going to say, like, I think, Cincy Miami could possibly catch them, but they'd have to
Miami
start playing bad.
Cincinnati would really have to. Cincinnati really needed that game with the Chargers.
Yeah.
I thought that the AFC West was going to be Kansas City and a bunch of schlubs and that they would just moonwalk to the division title. And that's not what's happened. Denver and the Chargers are both better than I expected. So,
now our division is the schlubs. We have the schlubs.
Yeah. So, partly because of the Tua injury, but it looks very likely that the playoffs is the 4 division champions, the Ravens or Steelers, and then the Chargers and the Broncos. And it's pretty kind of decided. It's just the order is not decided yet. Like, we have Kansas City winning the number 1 seed 55% of the time, Buffalo 35%, and Pittsburgh like 10%. So it's still up in the air.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the odds right now, and for Super Bowl, it's Detroit, obviously 42%, which...
And I will admit, by the way, my system, I need to work on the playoff odds in the offseason. I have a tendency to overrate the best teams. Okay. So, like, that Detroit winning the Super Bowl 43% of the time is a little nuts. It's probably more like 33% of the time. But they're still way ahead because those big 3 AFC teams have to all fight each other, and Detroit is... it has it easier.
But that their conference is 63.7. That probably checks out. But so how does this weigh out? So for conference win, it's Baltimore 24.4%, Kansas City 27.2%, Buffalo 25.5%. So all very close there. But then Baltimore is lower in conference, but they are more ahead in the Super Bowl.
Because they have a higher DVOA. So what it thinks is they're more likely to win once you get to the last game and you're on a neutral field.
That makes sense to me. Okay.
The problem is that they're not likely to have the home field advantage in the previous couple of rounds. So it thinks if Baltimore makes it to the Super Bowl, it's got a really good shot because it's got a really good rating. But because of their record, it's harder for them to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So I've noticed that those like anomalies before, and I've never thought about it in that sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah, that does. All right. Well, we won't keep too much.
And Detroit, I should point out, Detroit is historically good. They are like the 3rd best team in DVOA ever through 10 games, which sounds a little crazy because they had those couple of games where they were getting outgained in yardage.
Yeah.
But they've just been phenomenally efficient this year. They're second on offense, second on defense, and first on special teams. That Detroit Buffalo game in a few weeks is going to be amazing. I definitely think if you look at Detroit's schedule, that's their most likely other loss, right? So,
Sure.
but that's going to be quite the competition. Detroit is really good.
That Green Bay Detroit game, though, was pretty much proof of the thing we talked about earlier, that like yards doesn't matter all that much. Green Bay outgained that. Like, I think Green Bay had 400 and something yards in that Green Bay Detroit game, and it didn't matter. Detroit still owned that.
More efficient,
more efficient and dominated that game. So actually, and I put it out on Twitter, and I got killed a little bit by Bills fans of people putting out power rankings. And I was like, if anyone's putting Buffalo over Detroit, it's just to get your attention and clicks and stuff. Like, Detroit is, at least to the snapshot to this point in the season.
Yeah, now that
it's historically good.
Now that Kansas City has lost, and you can't do that thing where your power rankings are just the standings.
Yeah.
We all have to acknowledge Detroit is this year's best team. It's very clear.
Yeah.
They are the class, and that doesn't mean they're going to win it all. Because if you look at the top teams in DVOA through 10 games, there's plenty of teams that didn't, not just like the 07 Patriots, but
the Ravens were pretty historic last year. Yeah.
Last year's Ravens. 2018 Chiefs are on that list and didn't win it all. Like
2020 Bills had to be up that pretty high. They were
think they're on the 10 games list.
Okay.
They might be through more, but
got it.
You know,
we're pretty famous for getting hot at the end of the year.
Lost in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The 2007 Cowboys lost in the divisional round. So that 2007 Giants team took out some monsters. Like Dallas, Green Bay, New England was quite a run.
It's going to put Eli in the Hall of Fame, and I don't even know if his numbers are deserving.
Eli in the Hall of Fame, which is, you know, I mean, if it was my choice, there's plenty of linemen waiting to get in, but yeah.
So, Aaron, we won't keep you. Again, totally appreciate your time and coming on here with us. But can you tell the people what you've got coming up? You talked about a bunch of the articles you've written. I love the articles you do over there. What do you got in the works right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing the cornerback coverage. Will be out tomorrow afternoon. I've
had a run lately where I just joke that every cornerback graphic, regardless of which cornerback they're talking about, ends up being a Christian Benford graphic because he's like in the top of all of them.
Other guys, you know, Surtain and Lattimore, and then guys you would never expect, like Darrell Baker, who was waived by the Colts and picked up by the Titans and has been playing in place of L'Jarius Sneed, and nobody is throwing at him.
Yeah, Titans got a good defense.
Weird. And the Stats Hub. The FTN Stats Hub is great because we have all this charting stuff, and we now have DVOA for charting stuff in season. So you can see like which quarterbacks do well against man coverage or zone coverage or different coverage shells. We've never had that stuff in season. We've always had to wait till the end of the season to compile it and whatever. And now we actually have it in season for FTN subscribers. And I'll also point out we have all the other stuff like DFS optimizers and picks for other sports that I know nothing about, but we have people that do know about them. So people should definitely check out FTN Fantasy. There's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, you guys are doing great work over there. So
we appreciate you so much. And especially when we get to invite you on to say nice things about the Bills. That's our favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we talk about the fact is the last few years, you really have to be one of the top 6 or 7 teams to make the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right. We're not doing this thing the last few years where a team like the 2012 Ravens or the 2007 Giants has gone on one of those runs. So if you look at who the real Super Bowl contenders are, then in the AFC, it's Buffalo, Kansas City, and Baltimore. And then in the NFC, it's Detroit, Philly, I guess Minnesota, and San Francisco if they could ever get their act together.
Yeah.
We're going to find out because the Bills play a handful of them coming down the stretch here, and then probably the other 2 rematches in the AFC playoffs.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, again, we appreciate your work. All of our listeners appreciate it. And where can the people find you on social media? What's your handle?
I'm A Schatz NFL, ASCHATZ on X. And I'm now on the Blue Sky, like a lot of people. And it's just ashots.bsky.social.
Awesome.
And if you look up my stuff, I did a whole list, one of those starter packs of all former Football Outsiders writers, so that you can
I did see that today.
Doug and Mike, cool. Doug Farrar, Mike Tenier, and Bill Barnwell, and everybody else.
Those starter packs are really, really nice. It's such such an easy way to be like, hey, I can't find all the guys that I used to talk to. It's really nice to be able to just upload to that whole group.
Agreed.
Awesome, man.
Well,
Hey,
thank you very
appreciate your
much, man.
time, and hey, have a happy holiday season.
Hey,
Yeah.
happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, thanks, man. Take care.
All right. Always fun to have Aaron on. It's fantastic to be able
Yeah.
to come on, and especially when the Bills are playing great and we we get to have an excuse for him to
He used
come on
to
and talk nice things.
years ago. He would go on WGR all the time with Chopin the Bulldog, and he's a Patriots fan. And it also lined up in the time of like the drought when he really first started coming on the scene and talking about the people. I would go on Twitter and they would just blast like, this freaking guy. He just made these stats for them, but it's like they are really good. Like the stats show they're really good, and now that's us, right? Like,
yeah, correct. It's that. Yeah, see, now you can like he really is objective. It's just that before we were really bad, and now we're good, and we get the benefits of it.
That's it.
So as I think this fits really well, I want to talk about what our friends over at BetUS brought up before we do our awards with William Mattar. We obviously go through, and Aaron just laid out the schedule or the setup for us, and that we are a top ranked team. But I've got a lot of questions on what we think the Bills need to do over this stretch. So I'm going to give you the idea. I'm going to say I talked to our friends, our friend Yard Per Pass, going back and forth on the remaining schedule and where they fit in Ben Baldwin's tiers for the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Bills, looking at the seeding. And although the Bills do have some tough games, it looks initially like the Chiefs have an easier one, but it's actually there's quite a few games that they've stubbed their toe several times, including literally losing to the Raiders on Christmas last year. Like
and their division's weirder than ours, like a little tougher.
So let's assume that the Chiefs are going to go 5-2 over the final stretch, which again is over a full season, is a 12-game pace. That's not like some terrible run rate. Let's assume that they go 5-2. That means that for the Bills to win the 1 seed, they would need to go 5-1 in this stretch and only drop one game, because then they'd both be 14-3, and the head-to-head tiebreaker would come into play. What do you see in these final 6 games?
I got to give it a little bit of thought here, but
Buffalo Bills going undefeated, and we're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, that's
the best part is literally
you didn't see that
until it popped up on the screen. I didn't see it coming, and it made it so much nicer.
As long as it got you, better. I don't even care if anyone else.
It did. I was not ready. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm here for you, man, and your laughing support. This is going to be a tough stretch here. I think coming off the bye week, I hate to say it because it almost feels like a jinx, and at some point it's going to run up. But Sean McDermott's good off the bye, and I think they're going to get healthy.
Not good. 7-0. He's undefeated coming off the bye.
Yeah, and the 49ers, like Aaron said, they're one of these teams where it's like, man, you just feel like at some point the health is going to come back, and they are going to get back, but it hasn't yet, right? They're scoring like 20 points a game. It hasn't totally gotten back yet, and so hopefully we'll see this weekend how they look. I'm going to get to sit back and watch some stress-free football and see how they look and then scout them. But I'm feeling pretty good, way better than I was 2 months ago about the 49ers game. The Rams, again, also super inconsistent. They went toe-to-toe with the Patriots, which like Drake May makes the Patriots a little better, but going toe-to-toe and having a close game with them doesn't breed confidence. The Lions one here is really the one for me where I'm going to have a tough time picking the Bills.
Detroit. They are the hottest team in the league. We can beat anyone. We can beat them. Definitely. They are the hottest team in the league right now. And but they are not beating teams. They're destroying teams.
Yeah, I can see it being a close one, but this is a good team. It's a super physical team. As much as I like the Bills' lines on both sides, I think they won't match the physicality. The Lions just lost a linebacker and they lost Hutchinson. So those things might start to compile here late in the season for them and bring them back down to earth and make them more mortal like the rest of us here. And the Bills hopefully should be pretty healthy in the month period here. So you might get the best of the Bills versus
short of any new injuries. We're getting guys back. We haven't lost anyone new season long, and everyone that was missed games was either, I don't want to say precautionary, but like being conservative. So we know Keon Coleman's coming back, Dalton Kincaid coming back, Matt Milano coming back, Spencer Brown coming back. Like a lot of guys will be added to what we have here. And again, it's inevitable we'll have someone else get dinged up, but it's very possible we could face them at least fully there. So again, BetUS, they want you to use YouTube promo code YouTube150. You can get up to $2,000 in additional deposit bonus, 150% bonus on the first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposits. Again, use code YouTube150 to be able to get a deposit bonus there. If you see them going on this run, I think there's at least one loss in that run of Niners, Rams, Lions. I think it'd be awesome if we just keep winning the whole time and never lose again. That would be delightful. I'm going to say that we drop one of those in those three. And it's very possible that we drop two. Those are three really good teams. If we drop two, it will make it to where those final games matter less, because now all of a sudden, short of the Chiefs stubbing their toe 3 times, and which I don't expect, but it's possible. As it goes with the Chiefs, if we don't get an early loss from them, now all of a sudden, do those final games matter as much? Do we already have the division locked up? I know, I think it was Uber Hans went through. I think the Bills, technically, if things fall right, they could actually have the division locked up before we play again, because the Niners game is Sunday Night Football. So we're going to have the games in week 12, and we will actually have the rest of the week 13 games happen before our game. And if everything happens just right, we could actually already have the division won before we play again. Mm-hmm. So if we don't have shot for shot with the Chiefs, you could get to where, is Josh Allen taking the first snap of that week 18 game and then sitting the rest of the time, and it's Mitch Trubisky, and we have most everybody else just sitting. KM Murray saying here, Bryce Young going to do the funniest thing ever. Yeah, unfortunately, the next 2 games for the Chiefs are Panthers and Raiders. That would be quite shocking. But then Chargers, Broncos, Steelers, Texans, they have some tough games. Like, I don't think they're going to rattle off 6-0. I think they're going to lose, and I picked them to lose 2. I picked them to go 5-2 in that final stretch. Yeah. But they need to. If they go 6-1, we can't catch I don't think we're going to catch them, because I don't think we're going to go 6-0. But that's where we're at with these ones. So it'll be interesting to keep track of. And we'll be able to kind of watch it as we go here. But it is nice that if it does remain competitive, if we do go through that NFC stretch pretty well, and the Chiefs stub their toe early, their final 3 games are Texans, Steelers, Chargers, or Texans, Steelers, Broncos, and our final 3 are Patriots, Jets, Patriots. So that could get super interesting down the stretch.
Yeah. I'm ready to scream at my TV while Netflix is buffering in that Chiefs game the whole time. Also, does BetUS have any stats on whether or not we're going to see Tyrod Taylor in the week 17 matchup? Because I want to put some money on that one.
Woody Johnson wanted them to bench Aaron Rodgers. That was week 4.
Who knows what's true coming
4
out
games going into week 5.
I don't know what's true.
And you realize that after week 5 is when they fired Robert Saleh. Yeah. So like he was going to have somebody's head was rolling either way. Like how nice is it not to have a batshit crazy owner?
Yeah. I'm going to pat myself on the back again here for calling out that they were going to get fired when everybody was loving the Jets at the time. This was like over the summer, and people were like, "Oh, the Jets roster," and Peter Schrager's out there like they're going to win the division, and all these people. And I was like, dude, these guys are getting fired in 10 months and less than. Take the under.
Correct. They didn't even make it the 10 months that you predicted. And for anyone who isn't aware, Aaron called both Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas and said both of them would lose their jobs within 10 months. And again, everybody thought he was crazy, and he pegged both of those.
Aaron Rodgers is a cancer, straight up.
Yeah. So here, as Raiders producer Chris say, Raiders beat the Chiefs less than a year ago, and they played them close to the season. That any division, and I guess, in fairness, we need to be conscious of that as well, because we finished with 3 division games, and I do think we're going to win all 3, but it's never a guarantee. That Jets defense has been tough for us in the past. Crazy things happen.
Mayo's going to have those guys wanting to play us. Yeah,
and Drake May is
good. He's good.
Looking much better than what they were early in the season. And at the end of his rookie year, maybe he's got some things under his belt that you never know. Like, they could do something crazy here. Again, we should win those games. But if I'm going to predict that it's possible the Chiefs lose to the Raiders, and I have to acknowledge it's possible we could drop a dumb game too. So let's hope that's not the case.
No.
All right. So now the fun stuff here. We have gone through, and everybody does, superlatives and awards and all kinds of things like that. But Aaron and I wanted to have a little bit more fun with our William Mattar segment here. So we kind of made up some of our own awards that we want to talk through.
And we don't know each other's. We haven't talked about.
No, we have not shared any of them. We have not shared any of the awards, so it'll be a surprise.
I wonder how close
we'll have you go first on the first one, and we'll alternate. Then I'll go first. So
do you think we'll have differences? Before we get into this, you think we'll have some differences.
Yeah, okay. I do. I think we're going to have some differences.
All right.
So the first award is your MVNJAP. Your MVNJAP, which is for everyone. Obviously, everyone is familiar with that acronym. It is your most valuable non-Josh Allen player, because obviously Josh Allen is the MVP. Easy. He's the MVP of the league. He's the MVP of the team. He's the MVP of the city. He's the most valuable person.
My kids like him more than they like me.
Seriously. How that was going all around of the people saying that they say I love Josh Allen more than they tell their spouse they love them. Yeah. So obviously Josh Allen is the MVP of everything, but that's no fun. So Aaron, I'm pretty sure I know who this is, but I'm actually curious because I had to narrow it down to two people. Mm-hmm. Who is your most valuable non-Josh Allen player?
This was super tough for me. If it was previous to this week, it would have been Taron Johnson, but I'm going to go with Terrell Bernard on this because the first thing I do, Greg, every single week is I dig into the defensive film. I love defense, and I just want to see what the defense is doing. I love what McDermott and Babbage do. And every week it's no matter who's making plays, and Taron Johnson has been a big part of a lot of the success that they've had. And people have heard me talk about how important he is to what this defense does. But it's Terrell Bernard is out there calling everything and ahead of time. He knows the plays before anyone else does. Like, he's such a student of the game, and he's really now become really the glue that is just communicating everything to this defense. And you saw, if you, after watching this, don't do it right now, but after watching this, go check out the film room that Eric and Ant just did and gushing over what he did to the Chiefs and kind of single-handedly stopping them and stopping Kelsey. And I think this past week's performance really put it over the top for me that he is the MVP that isn't Josh Allen. And it makes sense because he's the other captain.
And I went with the other guy. I did go with Taron Johnson.
Hey, I've convinced you this.
So it's just he's so integral to what we've done, and I did take into account like some of them. We've had even Terrell Bernard missed some time. We've had some different guys. I debated Khalil Shakir. I debated Deion Dawkins. I thought that both of them deserved that level of.
If it wasn't for the penalties, Dawkins was like right there for me too.
Yeah, and there were little tidbits for each person. I think that's also the consistency and the reliability, not just at a solid level, but at an elite level. And I will say, Christian Benford was right there as well for me because he has played at just an exceptional level. But I went with Taron Johnson, and I think he deserved that.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. So next one, I'm assuming this is different because both of us had different takes in the off season. Yeah. So I'm going to start with guy I was most wrong about. This is in a positive manner. I was nervous about Connor McGovern playing center. I was concerned. I liked what I saw at guard. I wanted us to go out and get a new center. Out of all the moves that we did on Black Wednesday, Mitch Morris was by far the one I was most concerned with. And I knew McGovern was bigger, a little bit stronger, didn't move quite as well as Mitch, but like, yeah, is that gonna net out? Is it gonna let him is he gonna anchor enough that's really gonna be a net positive? Is he going to be able to make the calls? He hasn't played center since college and high school. Like, I know he played a couple snaps, but like all his entire pro career was as a guard, including his entire season with us. He hasn't been all pro. He hasn't been exceptional. He's been really good, really genuinely good. Some really nice snaps with a monster like Chris Jones. I know Osiris Torrance had a lot of that work this week, but a couple really nice ones from McGovern this game, and a lot of the reps showing that he can anchor and give Josh that how many times have we joked about Josh sitting there and just patting the ball and freaking making a sandwich in the backfield? A lot of that has been because of Connor McGovern. So I don't think he's been exceptional. I'm not calling for him to make a Pro Bowl, but I was worried about it, and I wanted them to leave him at guard and to go get somebody else at center. I was open to the people talking about Cedric Van Granger maybe jumping right in as a rookie, or maybe he'd need the Matt Milano treatment we had with Ramon Humber, and right now, this time of year, would be ready for SVPG to jump in and take that job. Connor McGovern is the center for this team for a long time. He's going to be there. I think he's technically even a little bit younger than Josh. He's going to be the starting center for this team for a long time.
Yeah, that's a great one. For me, it's Taylor Rapp. He was a guy that I just wasn't convinced was ready to be an every down safety in this defense. The way he played, the style he played, and he's really convinced me otherwise. I think he's a big part of the success that we've seen in the defense. He's making plays. One of the, obviously I always defend DeMar Hamlin of being in his right spot and doing the right things, but he's not a flashy player. There's not a lot of crazy athleticism. He's just kind of in the right spot. Rapp is doing a lot of that, but then he also comes up and he'll just bang somebody with his head and create separation from the ball and a player. And so it's more like that, not a Jordan Poyer role, but that Jordan Poyer physicality that was lost in that defensive backfield. And he's playing really well and not hurting any of the other Bills so far. Knock on that mahogany. But I was very...
It's the Guardian cap. The Guardian cap saving people.
Yeah, it's allowing him to play at that level. But I was wrong about him in that I thought that maybe he could be, adequate, but I think he's playing above adequate right now. I think in Havoc rating, he just jumped up into 15th in safety. All the data looks really good. He doesn't give up a lot in terms of passing. So he's a better player than I thought he was going to be. I thought that, worst case scenario, he can kind of hold it down for a year as, both he and Hamlin or whoever it was going to be can hold it down for a year, and we'll get Bishop in there. But then we're going to have to get another safety. But I actually think that he's part of the future of the safety room, no matter what way they go at the other position.
So real quick, we love RJ. RJ is a huge supporter. Cover one. No offensive lineman on the Bills is bad.
I just said their adjusted line yards are 4th. They're not giving up any sacks. I think their sack total is 5th or something.
David Edwards might be the least best of our 5. He's our least good of our 5. Yeah. The other 4 guys are playing better than him. He's not bad. No. Yes, every offensive lineman has bad reps. Every single one. Trent Williams has bad reps. Zach Martin has bad reps. So yes, of course, you can pick out bad reps for any player. The Bills have the highest floor offensive line in the NFL. We don't have a Trent Williams. We don't have a Zach Martin. We don't have a Quentin Nelson that's out there as a monster. Yeah, although when they have Skipper in there, he's been, when they're all healthy, they're top 5. The Lions probably are higher. But as far as
it's right there, and that's what we got to do.
Offensive line is a weak link system. We don't have any superstars, but we have all 5 guys are above average.
Not only are all 5 guys above average, Vandermark just came in and didn't give up any pressures and played at a really high level. Yeah. Alec Anderson comes in a jumbo set. Yeah, it's Aaron Cromer's doing the Lord's work.
I'll skip ahead because one of the later awards I had was obviously just an excuse. Position coach who deserves a lifetime contract extension. Yeah, Aaron Cromer. He has been a magic man. He has been a miracle worker with, again, we don't have any superstars. Deion Dawkins is a really good player. He's not a superstar. He's not, and he's playing at an elite level. Spencer Brown has been a ball of clay that Brandon Thorne, who knows more about offensive line play than anybody I know, called him a top 5 right tackle in the NFL. Brandon Thorne, our resource for offensive line, called Spencer Brown a top 5 right tackle in the NFL. Osiris Torrance just not handled, but didn't get embarrassed by Chris Jones. Not getting embarrassed by Chris Jones is a win. That's as good. He embarrasses everybody, and Osiris Torrance didn't get embarrassed. And with an offensive line, again, offensive line is a weak link game. Teams pick out your weakest guy and they try to attack him. And we don't have a guy to attack because, again, David Edwards does his job. He's above average and he does his job. And most teams have at least one turnstile guy that's easy to pick on and to go after.
Yeah, absolutely. We see it every week. Yeah, real quick on the Cromer thing too. It is the Lord's work that he's doing, because I think it was like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, my entire offseason was protect Josh Allen, right? Like it was the Bengals game. Josh Allen got lit up every single rep. You saw a turnstile, especially on the interior of the offensive line. And it's paired with what Brandon Beane has done to prioritize getting the right guys for Aaron Cromer and get it. Like they finally prioritize protecting him, and that's paying off. It's allowed Josh to be this mature quarterback that we're raving like, oh, look at his maturity, look at his ability to not flush out of the pocket when he doesn't need to. It's the work that Aaron Cromer has done ahead of him to make it that way. So we're on the same page there. We've got one at least.
So Aaron, who is the guy you were most right about?
Dude, I honestly was going to get a bit and just like roll a sheet of like
a scroll, roll out
a big scroll of things. It was really, this one came down to a couple for me, and I think I'm going to go with Von Miller on this one, because Khalil Shakir, I was super right about, and especially on the high end. Like I thought, even when we were talking about who's going to lead the team in reception, like who's going to be that replacement for Stephon Diggs in one, and a lot of people were on Kincaid, and I think I got sucked into that by a lot of people, but I was like, dude, I think like Shakir's really right there for me. So I was right about that, but Von and the hype train that I put him behind Von, he has made me look really right. Outside, obviously, he had the suspension and had to deal with the issues that he had off the field last year, affected his play this year. And so the statistics aren't all there, but like in PRP, he's still up pretty high and doing it at a high level. And this was one, Greg, that I caught a lot of flack for over the last year and a half with the injury and him not coming back in time. And then when he did come back, people were ready to just boot him off the team. And now you're seeing a Von Miller that, yeah, he's not the Von Miller of old, but this is a guy that he's still got that strong arm. This type of play and the pass rush that he's showing is going to show up. If he can stay healthy, it's going to show a big time come down in the playoffs. He looks good. He's come back from this injury, and there's flashes of the Von Miller of old. So I'm taking my right on Von.
Mine was the other side of that defensive line with group. I was, supporting and building up Gregory Rousseau this entire offseason. And I think that it's been kind of a percentage bump from last year, where there's a ton of games like this past week where he was incredibly impactful. It's not always as clear as the box score is. Maybe I would love if he cleaned up a little bit more. But again, you're still talking about a guy who's having an awesome season. Even with games like yesterday, you're still talking about a guy that right now has 5.5 sacks. The 12 tackles for a loss is ridiculous. Like I show all the different numbers of where he is in total pressures, quarterback hits, all the pass rushing things. And then I always mention that, oh yeah, amongst everybody else on the screen right now who are exceptional pass rushers, he's by far the best run defender and has the most run stops and the best run defense out of any of those guys. And he's right up there with everybody else in pass rush. So he is an absolute monster. He's going to cost us way too much money, but we'll figure that out next time. We'll figure that out in the offseason.
Right now in the NFL, havoc rate, which is something I love. That is a more of a new stat. And that takes into account every snap, run, pass, all of it. He's fourth, and it's behind Brian Burns, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, Greg Rousseau.
Elite company. Elite company. Great. The most elite.
Von Miller told us it was coming.
He did. All right, so I will start on this one. The more to come award. The player still trending up, but hasn't broken out yet. More to come. I was really torn on this because I think some people would want me to pick like we're still gonna see Cole Bishop or something like that, but we're not. Like DeMar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp are starting as safety.
They're going to be the
safeties. My
right was almost DeMar, but yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be the starting safeties the rest of this year. They're playing at a very good level. There's no reason to change that. So I was kind of kicking around. I think I'm going to go with Keon Coleman. Yeah. There's been some really nice flashes, but I think we might get a little more consistent. He's already been very, very good. So it's not like I didn't have like a clear cut one that really stood out to me. I debated so Charles there says Ray Davis. He was the other one that I debated, but James Cook is playing good and Ty Johnson is really good at his job. Like it's hard. Pete with a good call there for Kincaid. Where was your head at with this one of someone that you think there's more to come?
Well, Pete stole my thunder. For me, it's Kincaid.
like it.
And this was something I was on WGR, and producer Zach over at WGR, and I went a little bit back and forth on Twitter. And so we talked about a little today on WGR of that he was frustrated with the lack of that development of Kincaid, and development's just not something that, like, because he was picked first round, there was a huge expectation of what he was going to be, but development does take time. And I saw before the injury, I saw a lot there. Like he is getting some production, and a lot of it, Joe Marino has talked about this a ton. It's just been kind of unlucky. Like he and Josh haven't been able
on Josh.
Yeah, and I don't know why it is. I don't know what that connection, if there's something deeper, and then them not being on the same page. But I think over time those are going to hit. So when he comes back, I'm looking for him to jump to another level, especially with getting Keon Coleman back. Curtis Samuel was another one here for me that was close on what to expect more. I think he's trending in the right way.
That's a sneaky one.
I think that's a good one. He's going to be there too. And if and when this team can get all their weapons healthy, and you're a defensive coordinator, and you got to account for Shakir. You got to account for obviously Josh Allen, James Cook, and stuff like that. I think early in the year, teams were trying to take away Dalton Kincaid. Like we all talked about, this was going to be our wide receiver one. I think defensive coordinators thought that's their biggest weapon as well. Yeah. Now they're showing everybody does eat, and you can't just bracket Kincaid. You can't put a lot on him. So I think he's going to open up as we get into the playoffs. And I think there's a lot more on the bone for him this year.
Yeah. So one of our final awards here, I wasn't sure how to label it, but maybe your biggest creeping fear, your biggest anxiety that's left here for this season.
It's the kicking game and Tyler Bass and the inconsistencies. There's going to be games in the playoffs that come down to really tight, close games. This Kansas City game almost got blown up by the missed extra point. Whether or not it was a real missed extra point or not for Bass, it didn't count in the scoreboard.
It was at least close enough that they could call it not. So even if it would have been, like, even if, hey, they should have been, it's because it was like by that much that it was still in.
Love that he had the game winner. He also was pretty spot on for the rest, but I still don't feel great when he lines up for a kick. And winning a game winner in the regular season is cool and it's huge, but there's going to be some big kicks with tough conditions, playoffs on the line. And for me, that's the one that's like, you got to be consistent in those spots. And I just haven't seen it from him yet. And so that's just in the back of my mind.
So you're saying we should have gone with my original proposal of the award for kicker who makes me pee a little every time he lines up?
Yeah.
You're right. And I think that's the most obvious one. I'll give us a small secondary anxiety to I'll call it linebacker health.
Okay.
I'm really excited about the possibility of Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano being back and being healthy for an entire playoff run. We know what happened last time when AJ Klein played 98% of snaps in a playoff game, but I really want both of them to stay healthy, and both of them have had challenges staying healthy.
True.
So that's my secondary. That you're 100%. My number one is definitely Tyler Bass and confidence in that, and that it's not going to cost us a playoff game.
Yeah.
But my number two is linebacker health.
As much as I've advocated over that DeMar Hamlin's not terrible, like this is such a weird spot for me to be in of like, hey, it's not terrible. They've actually, as a duo, have played pretty good, and there's been a lot more good than bad. Different matchups still concern me with the safety position. So that's like a third one.
He's the David Edwards of my offensive line analogy. Like he's playing better, like similar to RJ, where I think there's a lot more people thinking DeMar Hamlin's playing bad and he's not, but he's also the least. He's fifth out of the five guys.
Have a bunch of all pros and pro bowlers. Yes.
Yeah, like he's fifth out of the guys there. So if a team's going to target someone in the secondary, he's the guy they would try to go after.
Yeah, and he's got some limitations of athleticism and things like that where it could show up at some point. So that would be like the third one. But yeah, kicking is so much more important to me.
Yeah. All right. So one final one I wanted to wait for our for the end of the show, and that we showed some of the regular season schedule that was out there. We showed some of the different pieces of what the game is. The one that makes me the happiest to share is our friends at BetUS here have the Super Bowl odds for the rest of the season, and now rightfully the Detroit Lions are the favorite. They of course should be the favorite. They are a freaking buzzsaw right now, and honestly, they're the team that, besides Buffalo, clearly, I'd be the happiest to see
so
win a
happy.
Super Bowl. It would be so cool for the fans of Detroit. A Buffalo-Detroit Super Bowl would be insane. It is obviously what we're rooting for.
I'm sure there's some like divisional opponents that would like hate on those teams, but like America would have, I think, a tough time picking like who they want to lose that game.
Who
Like
are
I
you
think
even rooting for?
they're
Like,
both good stories. You kind
it's
of
like
want a
that,
Super Bowl for both cities.
that Cubs Cleveland Indians World Series,
Yeah.
where like neither team had won in like 60, 70 years or 80 years, and like, hey, somebody's got to win one. It's one of those kind of scenarios. So this is the original season order, where it was previously, where the Bills previously were the 5th highest odds, which shows you that a lot of those people who were picking the Jets and the Dolphins and those teams to win the Super Bowl, the Bills are still the favorites for actual betting odds. But, the Bengals have fallen off. Clearly, the Niners have fallen off. We just beat the Chiefs. The Ravens have lost multiple games. So the Bills are now the 3rd highest favorite for the Super Bowl at plus 650. So, again, if you like this, if you like Aaron and I's prediction, use promo code YouTube150, get up to $2,000 on your deposit bonus. 150% on your first deposit, 125% of your second and third deposits. And as always, our friends at BetUS ask you to bet responsibly. Aaron, any final things for the people?
Yeah, man, enjoy the stress-free weekend of football. And I hope you enjoy your family vacation. Next week, we're not going to have you here next week.
So this is the last anyone's going to see me on the internet for almost like 10 days. No Greg Tompsett football shows, no Sunday game. Obviously, we don't have a post-game show. And you will be without me next week for the San Francisco preview game. I will be on vacation with my family down in Florida. Really looking forward to this trip. I'm very, very excited and ready to not work and not do anything and go down to some nice, it's going to be very sunny, nice weather. But then I will be back in time for the 49ers post-game show the following Sunday. So I will be off the grid for a full 10 days, off of social media, off of everything. I will be just out of touch, only with my family, eating delightful food and having a great time.
Yeah, I love that for you, man. And we'll be holding it down while you're gone here, the whole network, and we'll have our show just as normal. So tune in Wednesday. We'll have that show ready for you. And getting ready for this stretch coming up. Like, it's going to be nice here to watch some stress-free football and kind of do some scouting and stuff like that and relax, because this stretch coming up is not going to be super relaxing.
Yeah, some crazy stressful games coming. It's going to be, but it's a great test. I like the gauntlet. We've now banked enough wins that we know we're making the playoffs. It's a formality now. Yeah, we just now need to. I don't mind a gauntlet that kind of tests their mettle, especially as we're getting healthy. Just get healthy.
Get healthy, stay healthy.
That's it. Just stay healthy. That's all that really matters here. So again, as Aaron said, check out all the shows. Eric and Anthony did an awesome film room. Great stuff with the Air Raid Hour and Roundup and Under Review and all the shows over here at Cover One. Make sure to check them out. All of our friends that write over at Sports Illustrated, tons of good stuff. It's a great week to catch up on some national podcasts and great stuff being said about the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen now being the Super Bowl favorite, or the Pro MVP favorite. You can find more details on that in the film room. But thank you again for our sponsors over at with not only BetUS but William Mattar. Appreciate them very much. And as Carl said here, Josh had missed some of those things to Diggs. I actually I heard, I think it might have been on Mina Kimes talking about this, or maybe Ben Solak, that now having some of that connection with Amari Cooper, catching some of those balls that were dropped by previous guys, and now having a guy that those late hands and him snagging that ball was fantastic. So it was a great point by Carl.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Obviously also One Pass memberships. People ask all the time how you can help. Exactly. That's one of the ways, is to join Cover One Pass. We are truly an independent network here at Cover One. Not everyone that brings you news is. We rely on the support from the fans, whether that's people like Carl giving us the super chats, people joining One Pass, even simple things like we say it all the time, and people are saying it, and smash the like. Bills fans in here saying smash the like. all that stuff helps. It doesn't even have to be monetary. It goes a long way to an independent network getting on the algorithm, doing all that stuff. So I'm not scared to beg for your support. Give us likes, give us follows. But more importantly, if you really do want to support in a monetary way, join OnePass, and you get so much for it. The community is fantastic. It is going nonstop. I wake up and it's going at 6 in the morning. I'm going to get off here and go talk to those guys, and it's going to be going here at 10 o'clock at night. So if you want to be engaged, obviously there's people coming in and out of Twitter. Blue Sky exists. One community that does exist that is a great place to talk Bills is our OnePass community.
100%. And just as an example, although don't get me wrong, I like money and you're free to give me money. We spend all of it. So when we're doing that, when Aaron's talking about paying for those advanced subscriptions and being able to log in and have the access to the stuff at FTN so we can do the research and all the film tools that we use and all the, like, that's what we do. We just spend the money that you guys give us to be able to bring you better content. So that is the best way to help us. So again, thank you to Aaron Schatz. The big, huge thank you to William Mattar Law Offices. They've been an amazing sponsor for us, and we're already excited to talk to them about renewing for next season. I know Aaron's reached out to some others, but if you know any other places that would like to sponsor a fantastic show like ours, feel free to reach out. We're open for business. But on behalf of fantastic producer Chris Kepner and Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You have been listening to the Cover One Buffalo podcast, and we are out.